You know, it's funny. It's funny that you said that, and I'll give you an example of what you just said. Me and my mother was having a conversation the other day. So recently, you know, my family background is, you know, we're Caribbean and so on and so forth. I was, you know, born in the Caribbean, raised in the States, so on and so forth. So recently, I've been going back, re-engaging, re-in-touching. So, and I went back. You know, I went back to the Caribbean recently, within the last month or so, and I was standing in a spot that, and I'm looking at a building, and me looking at the building, I see my grandmother. My grandmother been past a transition for years now.
Right.
But I'm looking at this spot, and I see my grandmother, and I see her as if me and you standing there, and the being of it, it was like, wow. You know what I mean? So, and for me, the person I always said that always had their hand on my shoulder is my grandmother. Mm-hmm. Like when I'm in a spot and I'm in a state and I need to go someplace or I need to do something, I always call on her. What should I do? Give me some, I call on my ancestors and said, hey, show me what I need to see. Right? Mm-hmm. Give me, not do it for me. Let me tap into your knowledge. Let me tap into your foresight. Let me tap into you and show me. And the one person that always comes, right, that I can recognize, and the reason why I say it that way, is always her.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I can tell you there's been times in my life where I've gone someplace and I'm about to do something and I see her standing there and she's giving me that look like, nah.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I ain't gonna do that.
Right.
And then it turns out, it was like, yeah, and then, it's like, oh, damn, I shouldn't have did that. Like, okay, yeah, you got me. Got it. See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so that's an example of that as far as being able to capture that part of it.
Right.
Okay.
Which can always come back to reconditioning the mind, like you were saying earlier about people being reconditioned to think this way. But that's a situation that can start repenting the mind. So you could say, oh no, when I see grandma, I know this and she looking this way, I know, yo, this is not the way for me.
Yeah, that's not the move. That's not the move. That's not the vibe right now.
Go ahead.
Can I say something?
Keep us on track, Malak.
No. It's for everybody who's listening, right? It may sound like there is an amalgamation of thoughts. You understand what I'm saying? And I would like for everybody to consider this point. The elements that we're discussing and that we're bringing forth, they stem from the whole, right? But it just so happens the wholeness of the one expression is fractalized through different expressions.
Right.
That doesn't make it wrong or less credible or or anything like that. We are putting the pieces back together.
Right.
So, something that I was thinking about today, right? Even if I take the Bible, the Tanakh, the Quran, or any other, I'm going to say religious text, right? Chapter and verse is a redaction of the complete expression of the idea.
Quantify that.
What I'm saying is that you get a sentence, you get a line that says, well, you know what? This happened in this day, or you shall not do this. Right? That is a redaction of the original wholeness of the idea.
Right.
Because that one idea can be said in so many different ways. Right. And if I take if I take the human makeup, right? As you were kind of talking about earlier, the circle.
Right.
Right. Each one of us has chakras. There's medical terms for that.
Right.
Energetic meridians. There's medical terms for that.
Right.
Acupuncture points. There's medical terms for that.
Right.
Those are the in the divine plane, we still are one.
Right.
Exactly.
As we come down, there's different expressions of the one, which is light brown, dark brown, yellow bone, red bone, tall, short, wide, skinny. You understand?
Right.
Green eyes, blue eyes, all on the same
line,
all in the same circle of wholeness,
Right.
right? And if that record, excuse me, and if that demonstration plays out in people the way that it does, because we are only expressions of an idea.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We're all expressions of an idea. No different than when you open up a gate and you bring forth a child. It is the he or she, that child is the expression of those two ideas that came together
Right.
as one idea.
Right.
How much more so the information that's inscribed in religious texts.
Right.
So I said that to say, like, I know it sounds like we're throwing a lot of different things out there, and we are, right? But we taking pieces of one puzzle and bringing the puzzle back together.
And that's going back to the topic, suffering. It's only one suffering. It's and again, it's human suffering.
Human suffering.
It's human suffering. So it's a collective consciousness that's actually fractalized and are choosing different experiences that we will coin the term suffering. However, that perceived suffering is actually learning.
Love.
It's love. It's all love.
Oh,
There is a statement that there is no growth without failure.
100%. Yeah. I dare you to fail.
matter of fact, I think I just read that this week, brother. I'm
Hey,
serious.
There is a saying: there is no growth, there is no learning,
Right.
without failure.
and I think that's Rumi.
I dare you to fail.
I dare you to fail.
Right.
Like when you look like
I dare you, brother.
to bring it forward
Yeah.
just outside of within the context with us being one. Look back in yourself, look inward, and ask yourself, at what point in my life or when did I learn the most?
Yeah. 100% when I failed.
When I failed.
When you
You take it back. You could take it back. I could give you examples. The first time you jumped on a bike.
100.
The first time you jumped off a bike and you scraped your knee.
Yeah.
You learned, right?
Yeah. Not to fall no more.
Yeah.
fall no more, right?
Or take more caution.
Or take more caution, right?
That's the lesson.
You know what I'm saying? That's the lesson. That's the lesson, right? The first time you in school, you took that one test for granted, and you got that F or you got that 0, you got that big mark. You know,
Yeah.
see what I'm saying?
The perceived failure caused you to go study hard.
Go study hard,
Or you'll repeat it again
Or
or you repeat it again
until you get it.
until you get it.
'Cause-
But it's still the suffering, the failure it's that feeling.
Right.
It's that energy that you're like, yo, it just don't feel right.
It's the push.
It's
It's
the
the
push.
push.
It's the push to do better.
You see what I'm saying? You will remember more of your failures and your perceived suffering that changes and sculpts you than you do your victories.
Because even failure is a victory.
Right?
Exactly.
Failure is a victory, and that's one of my pillars. For me, I try to find a W in every L.
Which goes back to, and I wanna really sink this home, is like we're really speaking paradoxically because there is no suffering.
Right? There isn't.
There is no failure.
It's just a matter of how
It's an illusion.
you process it.
And,
Right.
and you know what? There are, and we can get into the influences of other beings later.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But there are influences that will manipulate your thinking to keep you focused on suffering. To structure your perception in that lane. But when you allow yourself to perceive, I'm gonna say beyond yourself, you get out your way.
Yeah, we are back to my brother's point, which is, again, ladies and gentlemen, there is no suffering.
Right.
Yep.
Choices. Once you put yourself in that choice, you put yourself in that pattern, you make that contract with yourself. That's where you get yourself.
Right. So
You have to learn how to get out of your own way.
And I'm gonna give you one tool you can take on board to do that. You know, as we get to it.
That's where I was about to go.
I was about to say, I think it's okay
yo,
to add something.
Let's go there.
I
Let's
think
go to that place.
we can. I think Zach had. Was it something you was about to bring?
It was something back when Twan was talking about enough fire and enough water. It's actually in the Kabbalistic tree.
Sure.
And
the Sephiroth.
It's the Sephiroth, but this one is dealing with the pillars.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
You have the left pillar, which is severity, and the right pillar is mercy, and the middle pillar is mildness.
Miles. Yeah. Balance.
So it's like a balance in between the two.
Yeah.
So it's like dealing with the shadow and dealing with the light.
Right.
And balancing the two, because both are necessary for the other's existence.
Right.
At least in this plane.
Right.
Amen.
And see, when you get to that point, you'll start seeing these things in these teachings and these things that we have.
Right.
That's why we have
The yin yang.
The yin yang. That's why we have the menorah.
Right.
The menorah is basically the tree of life, or what we would say the sofa rope, because we have these lamps, but they all connect to the branch, to
Right.
that middle branch, and on to the branch, you still have that middle path, which is
Right.
the path of love, or the heart chakra, which is the path of love, but all of it is connected to it.
Right.
It's all connected to love, no matter how you're gonna break it down or how you move it.
Right.
It's all connected there to that middle light.
It's because love is the highest vibration in connection to the source of all.
Right.
Because love is harmonious.
Right.
And essentially, through each relationship, you're learning how to grow harmoniously.
Right. So go ahead and break it down.
What you got for us?
What you
got
Oh,
there,
yeah.
boy?
Yeah. Shout out to Seafood for that one. Yeah. So earlier, you remember we touched on the point about healing,
Yes.
right? And there's a lot of expression about healing. And you know what? That's necessary. But one thing, what I'm gonna add to it is that we have to heal enough to become whole again. That's the first plane, right? And then, as you develop and you become whole, you heal so that you can become coherent, right? And as you become coherent, you gain recognition of certain circumstances. You know how to differentiate, and you know how to you're working towards balance.
Right.
And as you become coherent, you incur activation, in which you start activating the latent capabilities within your core energy blueprint, right? So this is a space of awareness where you, let me see what I wrote down here, where you activate energetic powers within yourself.
Okay. Got you.
That essentially you have, right? So, if you take for an example the sentiment, like physician heal thyself, right? There's an adage that says that the doctor dresses the wound, but the Most High heals it.
Right.
Right? So you go to the doctor, something happens, right? You break a bone or whatever the case may be. It protrudes out the skin, right? They do their work, right? Did the doctor heal it, right? Or is it the power that you have within yourself that does the healing?
Right.
Watch it now.
Your inherent abilities.
Your inherent abilities, right? So
The next gene,
Say it again.
your mutant X gene.
It's a part of it's
what it
the
is.
truth. Right.
It's
Right.
what it
Right.
is. Your body's gonna, with that sentiment. Is it you doing the healing? Or is the doctor doing the healing? It's you doing the healing.
you're doing it. But what the
Right.
doctor does is the doctor removes the blockage.
He facilitates something.
That's all it is.
You know what I'm saying? So there's and even in that, right, we should attune ourselves to gain the awareness of how we institute blockage within the body,
Yes.
right? Within the mind, within the sphere of consciousness.